order. So if we could all, there we go, perfect. Or Daniel, I said that the Thursday, the 4th. Give us 30 seconds. Since we're just chatting for a few minutes, Kansas, how about that last night? Oh, is that what we call it? I'll find it because they sent me a text message. What? Cheers. He's calling to make sure we can get the use of the MPO building at 6 o'clock, the annex. Park or something. Ouch, that hurt. We might go ahead and get started. We're going to go ahead and get started. It is 8:35 a.m. on this April the 5th day in 2022. We officially are calling this meeting to order. So all of you still carrying on a conversation, if you could please stop at this point. Let's be quiet. Quiet, please. Thank you very much. We will start today with the chaplain prayer and pledges. And if Gary Jenkins and Marcella Jenkins would please come forward.
Our mayor, the Honorable Brenda Gunner, the members of the San Angelo City Council, and the people we serve. I'm asking that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern among the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, personal peace in their lives, and joy in their task. I pray for the agenda set before our council today. Please give an assurance of what will please you and what will benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved city of San Angelo. I pray for rain, Lord, here in this city. I pray, Lord, that you protect the people of Ukraine. Bring peace and protection for them. In the precious name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Will you please join me in the pledge?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee.
Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Our first proclamation today is for Earth Day. So all of you that are here today to celebrate Earth Day, would you please come forward? In other words, all of you in green, come on up. Turn around and look back at the audience. There you go. A bunch of good-looking kids here today. The first Earth Day was held on April 22, 1970, when San Francisco activist John McConnell and Wisconsin Senator Gaylord Nelson asked Americans to join in a grassroots demonstration supporting environmental challenges. At that time, President Richard Nixon led the nation in creating the Environmental Protection Agency. Now, 52 years later, more than 1 billion people in 192 countries participate in Earth Day activities each year, making it the largest civic observance in the world. Earth Day is an annual reminder of the constant need for commitment to restoration and sustainability efforts. It is up to each and every one of us to restore our Earth because we care about the natural world. All people of this earth from all walks of life have a right to a healthy, sustainable environment. Not only is Earth Day meant to increase awareness of environmental issues, it is also a time for our community to come together at the local level to promote educational efforts, public policy, organizations like Keep San Angelo Beautiful, and students like Emma McKeskey and Lily K. Middlebrooks for their environmental stewardship. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of San Angelo, do hereby proclaim April 5th, 2022 as Earth Day. and encourage all residents to use this day to celebrate the earth and commit to the stewardship of the environment. Together, we can make the earth a safer and healthier place to live. Thank you. Would you like to come forward, Charlotte? In this, Emma and Lily, are you going to want to offer some words today? Would you like to talk? Tell me what you've done. Yes. Come over here, and you're going to speak right and introduce yourself so we know who you are. Who are you today?
I'm Lily K. Middlebrooks,
Okay.
and I wanted to just talk about the cleanup that we're having today. So we're going to have some trash bags that we're going to be holding and some trash picker-uppers, for short, they're clippers, and we're going to pick up the trash and put them in the bags. I believe after that, our park is going to look very clean. I hope that we're going to see some grass.
We hope it rains so we can see some grass. Would you like to offer some words? Come on, it's your turn.
We're doing a trash project about littering and how we can keep San Angelo beautiful. And we're learning that we need to recycle more and not just throw away things.
Thank you for your work. Charlotte, would you like to offer something?
The class with us today is from Santa Rita Elementary, the third grade class with Miss Weeble, and a couple of her students are working on the Trias competition, and this began with an interview, and we ended up having some wonderful conversations on recycling. The students became junior KSAP ambassadors and took a pledge never to litter and to recycle when they can. And they've also decided they want to do a cleanup in Santa Rita Park. So we're going to go back to the school and clean in the park, and we're real excited to have a beautiful morning. And we thank you, Mayor Gunter, for your kind words and the proclamation. It's going to help them foster a better love of the environment and hopefully have really good luck on their Trias research projects.
How many bags of trash do you think you're going to get? A lot? How? 11? I bet you get at least 15. Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lot of trash out there. All right, we are going to have a picture, so let's come forward. Would those of you who are in the audience for our Alcohol Awareness Month please come forward? Approximately 15 million current drinkers in the United States are dependent on alcohol. Almost 100,000 people die each year from alcohol-related causes, drinking and driving crashes, other accidents, falls, fires, homicides, and suicide. Alcohol abuse is linked to as many as 2/3 of all sexual assaults and date rapes. The typical American will see 100,000 alcohol-related commercials before they turn 18. Adolescents use alcohol more than tobacco or illicit drugs, and young people begin drinking on average at 13 years of age. Youth who begin drinking before age 15 are 4 times more likely to develop alcohol dependence than those who begin drinking at age 21. Alcohol is a primary factor in the 4 leading causes of death for youth ages 10 to 21. For all these reasons, the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Council for the Concho Valley and the Concho Valley Cares Coalition are asking the residents of San Angelo to join in recognizing April as Alcohol Awareness Month. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim April 2022 as Alcohol Awareness Month in San Angelo, Texas, and call upon all residents, parents, government agencies, public and private institutions, businesses, hospitals, schools, and colleges in the city to support efforts that will increase community awareness and support for individuals and families coping with alcoholism in our community.
Thank you. My name is Jennifer Flores, and with me I have our CEO, Eric Sanchez, our prevention specialist, Gilbert Mendoza, and our Community Coalition Partnerships Coordinator, Chesney Stevens. I want to extend my thank you on behalf of ADAC to the City Council members and to Mayor Gunter for having us here today to proclaim this month as Alcohol Awareness Month. Our prevention team at ADAC continues to outreach to schools and other organizations throughout the Concho Valley to promote life skills, curriculum, and presentations to youth of all ages. High school students are gearing up for prom and end-of-the-year celebrations. However, with this season also comes the dangers of underage drinking. According to the American Automobile Association, 87% of teens reported their friends would be more likely to drive after drinking than to call home for a ride, especially if they thought that they would get in trouble. Also alarming is that approximately 19% of teens said that they have ridden with someone who had been drinking rather than calling their parents to come and get them. 30% of teens know other peers who have gotten DUIs for impaired driving. About 90% of teens believe their classmates will likely drink and drive on prom night. Talking with the youth and adolescents in your life about the dangers of underage drinking is crucial. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration offers 5 conversational goals for parents. Number 1 is to show you disapprove of underage drinking and other drug misuse. Number 2 is to show you care about your teen's health, wellness, and success. Number 3, show you're a good source of information about alcohol and other drugs. Number 4, show you're paying attention and you will discourage risky behaviors. And number 5, build your teen's skills and strategies for avoiding drinking and drug use. Thank you.
Oh, Eric, I forgot to give you the proclamation. Job's not done until you get this. Our next proclamation is for Fair Housing Month. Do we have individuals in the audience for this proclamation? If so, please come forward. Come on, you can come on around. The Fair Housing Act, enacted on April 11, 1968, marks the anniversary of the passage of the Fair Housing Act when it enunciates a national policy of fair housing for all who live in the United States. The Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination in housing based on race, color, religion, gender, disability, familiar status, and national origin. Additionally, the City of San Angelo prohibits discrimination based off those same identifiers. Fair housing is a positive community good. Economic stability, community health, and human relations in all communities are improved by diversity and integration. Fair housing is integral to the ethical commitment of members of the National Association of Realtors and the San Angelo Association of Realtors, and is critical to the ability of all real estate professionals to serve their clients, customers, and communities. Acts of housing discrimination and barriers to equal housing opportunity work against the goal of decency and fairness in housing practices. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2022 as Fair Housing Month in San Angelo, Texas, to establish the City of San Angelo as an inclusive community committed to fair housing and to promote appropriate activities by private and public entities intended to provide or advocate for equal housing opportunities for all residents and prospective residents of San Angelo, Texas.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor and Council. We are members of the San Angelo Association of Realtors, and we are here celebrating the month of April for fair housing. We have a couple of different activities planned for the month, and we want to promote this across the entire community. We appreciate the recognition and proclamation this morning. Thank you very much.
And our last proclamation is for the month of the military child. I know we have a lot of military folks in the audience. If you would come forward. Come on up here. Come on up here. Come on. Come on. Everybody in place? Since 1986, the Department of Defense has recognized military children during the month of April. The commitment and sacrifice of our military's youngest heroes in supporting the brave men and women of the U.S. Armed Forces is worthy of honor and celebration. The unique demands upon the children of our military personnel do not go unnoticed, from often being the new child in school or the feeling of missing a parent deployed while serving our country. Here in San Angelo, we are blessed to have Goodfellow Air Force Base. Strong military families that call our community home add so much to our West Texas community. Today and for the month of April, we will make a special effort to lift up our military families and to salute them and the contribution and resilience of our military children. As part of this salute, San Angelo ISD is partnering with the City of San Angelo to honor our military families and children. The city and SAISD invite our San Angelo community to join in our salute and gratitude. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, and together with San Angelo Independent School District administrators, principals, educators, staff, and students, do hereby proudly proclaim the month of April as Month of the Military Child and urge all citizens of San Angelo to acknowledge the occasion of this month in honor and recognition of the outstanding strength of our military children and their families in gratitude of their service. I'm going to hand this to who? You want to speak? Let me get out of the way.
I just want to begin with that. At San Angelo ISD, we are so incredibly proud to support the hopes and dreams of our military-connected students, of nearly 800 military-connected students. And we are extremely appreciative of our long-standing relationship with Goodfellow Air Force Base and the airmen and women at that base and the incredible work they do, especially in these uncertain times. Thank you, Colonel Rallman, for your leadership, and all of y'all. We really, truly appreciate all that you do to enhance our community in San Angelo and our school communities. I also want to begin with highlighting some of our special guests we invited here today, because that's who it's really all about, are these military-connected students and their resiliency and sacrifice and how much we appreciate them. So you'll see right here, we have the Fair family. We've got first grader at Bel Air Elementary. We have Elias. And then we have his younger brother, Jackson, that is in pre-K. And Miss Eubanks is very proud of them, as, of course, Master Sergeant Fair and his wife are so very proud, and we appreciate them coming here. So can you kiddos wave, give a wave, and let the crowd applaud for you? You're so very special, and we thank you, kiddos. And then just next to them right here, we have the Allen family, and I have to brag on this Central High School sophomore, Michelle Allen, who is the Boys and Girls Club Texas Military Youth of the Year for the entire state. What an accomplishment for only a sophomore. We are so incredibly proud, and this is the first time that somebody in our area has won that distinguished honor. So, and you'll see right next to him is proud retired Major Sergeant Allen, who is also one of our San Angelo ISD difference makers. He is an educator over at San Jack Elementary, so we appreciate him and the rest of his family, and please give them all an applause, because we truly appreciate all that they do. And you'll see Mr. Waters is also very proud, always of his Bobcats, but what an outstanding achievement. You know, like I said, at San Angelo ISD, we have about 800 military-connected students, and they bring so much to our schools. Last year, we were recognized as having 4 Purple Star campuses. It's a new award through the Texas Education Agency, and it's for schools that go above and beyond to support military-connected families, and we are committed to continuing that. Those 4 campuses were Central High School, Glenn Middle School, and Bel Air and Glenmore Elementaries, but we are committed to continuing this for our district-wide in best ways that we can. That's why we work to collaborate with Goodfellow, and we are looking this year at different ways that we can do that and to continue to do that. So we just want to invite all of the community to join us in showing your appreciation. Mark your calendars for April 20th. We invite the entire community and all of our schools to wear purple. It's Purple Up for military children, to show your support and appreciation. So wear purple that day, and please continue to follow our Facebook and social media. You'll see some other ways that we're celebrating. We'll be doing a feature on Michelle, so you can learn a little bit more about him, and then just some of the other things that we do to support our military-connected families. I also want to add that our superintendent, Dr. Detloff, sends his regrets. He wanted to be here. He just had a prior commitment for a fiscal transparency group that he had in the Austin area, but he also expresses his appreciation of these wonderful students. And again, we can't say enough how much we appreciate them, and let's celebrate them all year long and give a little extra support in this month of the military child.
We will now move into the public comment portion of our agenda. Do we have individuals in the audience today who would like to come forward and offer comment during this public comment agenda item? Seeing none, we want to make an announcement that on April the 14th at 6 p.m., we will do our second meeting in discussing the tiers program in the north, and the meeting will be at the MPO Annex. That is where the bus station is, if you will, on Chadburn and 6th Street or at Houston Hart. So that's the Annex building there. So please put that on your calendar if you would like to participate or be present at that meeting. With that, any other public comment? Okay, we will move into our consent agenda. And our consent agenda, we will start and ask Larry, is there any item you'd like pulled from the consent agenda? Karen? No, ma'am. Lucy?
Item B, please, Mayor.
I'm going to pull items C and D. Harry?
No, ma'am.
Tom?
No, ma'am.
Tommy?
No, ma'am.
Okay. With that, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item B, C, and D?
So moved.
Move.
So moved by Karen, seconded by Harry. Any public comment on the consent agenda items with the exception of items B, C, and D? Seeing none, we will take a vote. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, motion passes 7-0. We will now go to item B, consider a resolution allowing city staff to publish notice of abandonment and authorizing the city manager to execute all related documents to reclaim ownership of burial lots at Fairmont Cemetery which have been abandoned for 60 years or more. Is Jeremy or Amanda here? Amanda's here, okay.
Good morning.
All right, Lucy?
Yes, Amanda, I just wanted to bring this out so our viewers would be able to hear about it since we
Yes,
want it
ma'am.
published. Also want it on the recording. So can you tell us a little bit?
Yes, so the city attorney's office has been researching these abandoned plots which haven't had a burial in over 60 years in the plot. So we've researched, tried to find heirs to the ownership, and we found some, and some people have reclaimed them. However, most have not had any kind of heirship found. So we are going to publish in the paper the ones that haven't had any ownership. So those will go in the paper, and then they can contact our office or Jeremy to provide proof that they own those lots or have heirship to those lots, and then they can reclaim them. Otherwise, they'll go back to the city of San Angelo, and we can resell those lots because they're pretty sold out at Fairmount. So then we can not just have empty, unclaimed spaces. So
Thank you. I just wanted the public
Yeah.
to be aware of that.
yeah, and that'll be in the paper shortly.
I move to approve, Mayor.
Wait, I have a question.
Oh, yes,
So
ma'am.
my question is, when it's published, will it be by the family name and the lot number? Because most
yeah.
people don't know lot numbers.
Yeah, it'll be published by the person that purchased the lot, so their name will be published, and then the lot space and how many spaces are still remaining in that burial
Many
plot.
people leave burial lots, plots to people in their wills. And so that person's last name might not be the same last name as the person that, because had the records been updated relative to, because you wouldn't know, some of those are in people's wills to give to.
Yeah, we wouldn't know, so who we're publishing in the paper is who purchased the plots originally. So we don't, I don't know what's in someone's personal will, so.
That's going to get tricky.
Yeah, so if you see a name that you recognize and you think you're related, we can help them out. But we've used Ancestry.com as our source to try to track back. Some people didn't have any heirs at all, so those are the ones that we really need to reclaim that didn't have any heirship at all. So.
Add to a little history on this. We did this years ago in the oldest part of the cemetery. It's been, 10
2005 is when we did it.
it's been when we
Yeah.
did this last. We took the oldest part of the cemetery and did this same process. We have to follow state law, all those requirements. It went very smoothly at that time. I think that staff did a good job of trying to notify and work with people wherever. So we'll take that same effort again this time.
Oh, yeah, we've already done all of that part, so yeah.
Okay. All right, Lucy, would you like to move for approval?
Yes, ma'am, I move to approve.
Is there a second? Second by Tommy. Any public comment concerning this item? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, motion passes 7-0. Item C, consider entering into an interlocal agreement with Tom Green County and awarding ES-02-22 2022 annual seal coat project to CK Newberry LLC in the amount of $5,536,626.11 and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents. Good morning, Patrick.
Good morning, Mayor.
The reason I like this, I wanted this pulled because the dollar amount, first of all, is a huge dollar amount, which is great.
Correct.
But also, I just, because it is a large dollar amount, I think we need to talk about the areas of town that this will cover, if we could, please.
So the dollar amount, the city's portion of the dollar amount, so this seal coat bid for this year is a little unique in the fact that we did coordinate with Tom Green County to include their roads as well in our bid so that we could get some economy of scale, and we saw that, and that's why you see the $5.5 million number. If you take the county's portion out, the city's portion is going to be $3.7 million, which is right in that ballpark of what we've been spending for the last 7 years on our annual seal coat program in order to keep up with that about 1 million square yards a year in that 8-year rotation that council told us that they wanted to start as their goal for chip seal. So we're right in line with that goal as well. So about 3.7 of that is the city's portion of that. 1.7 is the county's portion of that $5.5 million. So this, again, follows right in line with what we've been doing for the past 7 years in our annual seal coat program.
Two things I'm excited about. I hear from Pete Lopez on a regular basis, and so Los Lomas is part of this seal coat, which is a good thing. And the other thing I had brought up sometime prior was how bad Fairmont Cemetery needed. I think they're supposed to be streets within the cemetery, but they're kind of like trails.
They're roadways.
They're roadways. So there's a big need for that. So I know those two are inclusive in this project.
That is correct. Yes, ma'am. So Los Lomas is in there, the lower southwest area, south of, or I guess it would be north of Southland is in this year's bid. The cemetery roadways. The police station parking lot is also included in this because it's in some pretty bad shape. So we want to preserve that parking lot as well. So again, it falls within our budgeted number for chip seal, and we're right in line with that goal again.
When will this project start?
So we anticipate they have a drop dead time to be finished by September. So we'll coordinate after approval today. We'll coordinate with that vendor as to when he's going to get down here and when they're going to start that process. So it'll be a couple, 3 weeks of actual work going on, but we'll coordinate that with the vendor after this award.
One of the things I would be concerned about is the following, that I'm sure the cemetery will only take 1 day or a partial day, but we need to make sure that the funeral homes are aware of the date that this program is going to
Absolutely,
occur,
yeah,
so
we're
that
coordinating
everyone's
well
on
with-
board and we don't have any issues relative to that.
Yes, ma'am. We're coordinating well with Jeremy on all of that as well. So
Okay, thank you. Lucy?
Patrick, you were talking about the streets that are going to get seal coated. Do we have it on the website so people can go and check and make sure if they're
yes, ma'am.
asking us for
Yes,
a
ma'am. We
certain
do
street?
post that on the website. It's on the operations page you can link over, as well as on the engineering department's page. So there's a couple different places that you can link over to that. Again, homeowners, as our standard practice, will get noticed by the vendor. They'll be giving them a 7-day notice and then a 24-hour notice as well. So.
Any further questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Larry?
As I understand it, you've made a bit of savings over previous contracts on that. Could you give me an idea of what economic factors you've made on this in terms of how much we're going to spend?
So we can, what we can do is we can look at what the past year was. What we don't know is what is the savings by going in with the county, what that was, because we don't know what it would have been otherwise. But if we look at our past history, we're saving about 10% on this contract in that economy of scale.
Thank you.
I I think the key number is the dollar we're paying for the seal coat, because I think that's the key part of it, right, is the price of because of the large consumption, the price of the oil product, the key product, I don't know what you call that product, but it's the product that.
The asphalt and the rock,
Yeah,
right.
that, okay.
So
I think you got it's below $3, right?
it is. We're around that 290 mark right now. Obviously, that flexes a little bit with the amount of asphalt that we put down, so we don't know that true number until after the seal coat process is completely done, because some areas will shoot a little heavier, a little lighter, just depending on shade and some of those other environmental factors. So, but we're anticipating below $3 on this.
Yes,
Excuse me,
Daniel.
I do want to point out that you're comparing to last year, and you're talking about 10% savings, but actually this year, as the mayor pointed out, as asphalt's going up in price, we probably have a bigger saving than that. But it's really good that, again, the economy of scales were looked at, and a partnership with the county, I think, was a really smart idea. So good work on that.
Any other questions? Okay,
approval, Mayor.
move approval by Tommy. Do I have a
Second.
second? And second by Lucy. A public comment on this item? Seeing none, may we take a vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. We will now move into item D, consider amending WU-05-21 Professional Engineering Services, Upper Colorado Regional Flood Planning Technical Consultant to HDR Engineering Incorporated, increasing the contract amount by $600,000, funded by Texas Water Development Board grant, bringing the new contract total of $1,456,738, and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents. Good morning,
Morning.
Allison. Would you explain what this contract does?
Yes, ma'am.
What's about?
It was last year that we entered into an agreement with Texas Water Development Board. We, as the city of San Angelo, sought your approval to become the political subdivision, or basically we host the meetings, we host the Region 9 flood planning process. So this isn't for San Angelo specifically. This covers an area of Big Spring, Midland, Odessa, parts up into Taylor County, and all the way up to the New Mexico line. So it is the entire upper Colorado River Basin, basically, is the Region 9 flood plan. These funds are appropriated by the state legislator, and then it goes through the Texas Water Development Board. They have determined how each region is funded. And so originally there was little over $20 million allocated to the individual regions. They came back several months later after we had already entered into agreements with technical consultants and wanted to add more money into the flood planning process so that they could have more evaluations performed and those type of things, so to create the state flood plan. So now we have executed an amendment with Texas Water Development Board, and in turn, we need to execute an amendment with our technical consultant, which is really our engineering firm that helps lead the flood planning process with the city of San Angelo and all of our stakeholders. So the city of San Angelo is just the political subdivision, or the means to process the flood planning for Region 9.
This does not come out of the general fund or out of the water
No,
fund.
none of these dollars are allocated or are from the city of San Angelo. Everything is from the state of Texas.
Okay. Do I have questions for Allison from anyone else?
Move approval, Mayor.
Thank you, Tommy. Do I have a second? Second by Karen. All those in favor say, public comment, please. With none, we'll take a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Motion
Thank you.
passes 7-0. We will now move into our regular agenda. Comments regarding items on the regular agenda may be made by the public when each item is discussed as outlined above. Applicants, proponents, and appellants are exempt from the time limit above and instead must limit their remarks to less than 5 minutes. Item A is considered a resolution authorizing the use of city property at El Paseo de Santa Angela Park for the local unit of the NAACP to implement a Buffalo Soldiers Memorial and Interpretive space. And Carl, you're on.
Late last winter, we received a proposal from Mrs. Shirley Spears
the president of the local unit of the NAACP. We've met a handful of times with city staff to consider this proposal, to hear all the aspects of it, and meet on site to see how we might be able to incorporate it. And a quick orientation, the location is adjacent to the Fort Concho Parade Grounds. It's on property of El Paseo de Santa Angela, which is this location here on the east side. And a portion also is this piece of property, which was the old Riddle Electric Building some years ago. The city purchased that property, and it's now available for our use. I want to introduce Mrs. Shirley Spears to talk about the proposal, and afterwards we can field any questions and talk about the resolution.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to share this information with you. I know that some of you have heard me talk about it and heard others talk about it over the last few months, and even seen the great work that KFW architects have done to help us demonstrate what it is that we're trying to do. So we're not wanting to do anything in this space other than to memorialize the work of the Buffalo Soldiers from a national perspective, also from a local perspective. We have several Buffalo Soldiers who actually worked at Fort Concho who received medals of honor. And we have, of course, the first black graduate of the Military Academy, Mr. Henry Flipper, who actually worked here. We certainly want to give him his place in history. And then we have several of the Buffalo Soldiers who are buried, and we talked about Fairmount Cemetery this morning. I think we have 3 or 4 over there that are buried. We want to highlight their life experiences. One of the other important factors is that the men who were a part of this colored troop, they were instrumental in helping to start the first church that was dedicated to the African American community. It is the Greater St. Paul AME Church that is located on 3rd Street. The AME organization out of Philadelphia, during the time that the men were here as Buffalo Soldiers, asked for a Mr. J.W. Walker to start that church. And so that was really the start of black life, if you will, and certainly the first church for the black community here in San Angelo. It was not located where it is now on 3rd Street, but eventually it moved there, but that's also important in our history. The other thing that's important for us to note is that some years ago there were efforts to build a statue on 87 and 11th Street. Certainly that was the plan by one of our longtime members, Ms. Sue Mims, who passed in 2019. I don't know how far along they got with it in the meetings, but as most of you probably know, a statue can be in excess of $1 million. They did pour the slab for the foundation there on 11th Street, so it's just kind of been there, not any activity. What we're proposing is something more reasonable and practical. You can't really learn or visualize anything going 45, 50 miles an hour. So we're proposing this location, which has a natural connection to Fort Concho across the street from the parade grounds. We have already gotten some early estimates of approximately $300,000 to do this project, which we are willing to raise through grants and other philanthropic donations. We believe this is a better place for something of this nature so that people can actually learn and truly associate the lives and the work of the Buffalo Soldiers at Fort Concho. And this is what we're proposing to, and you will see some examples here in just a moment that Carl will display. And so we're asking for the space. We know that there will be limited additional costs to the city in terms of maintenance. And I think once you see the statues that we're going to, not the statues, but the monuments that we're actually going to place there, you will realize that we're not adding an additional burden to the city for maintenance or cost, but that the work that we're doing is basically taking advantage of the space and some of the accommodations that are already there.
Shirley, let me ask one question. Years ago, I don't know how many, there were the metal cutouts that I think then was supposed to be in honor of the Buffalo Soldiers as well, and they were there somewhere at Fort Concho or at Paseo, and then it was moved to South Irving and Concho River and MLK, on the military drive. Was
The
that
park.
correct?
Was located here. It was part of the original idea for the Paseo, and it was supposed to be a buffalo wallow, is what it was. And they were simply just cutouts of 3 buffalo, and it really wasn't associated with Buffalo Soldiers. It was a buffalo wallow. Because if you look at the Paseo, it kind of has a meandering stream, and the end was supposed to be the wallow where the buffaloes were. But yes, those were relocated to Irving Street and Veterans Memorial Drive a few years ago.
Just to make sure we don't confuse people with 2 different things. Okay, great, thank you.
So on this example here on this diagram, what you see here is the proposed Buffalo Soldiers conceptualized by KFW. If you see these monuments that are here, in between, these are just monuments made of stone. We will be using local or area companies, that is our request, so that we're keeping as much money in the region and in our city as possible. There is a nearby quarry that we would be talking with to build these stones.
Would it be from the same quarry as the Fort Concho?
I don't believe so. Bob or Carl might be able to speak to that better, but I don't believe so.
I believe Garden City,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's the same source.
So here you have the example there. This is Oak Street that you're looking at, and you have the cabinet shop that's there behind it with the additional lot that's in the front.
I like that sketch of that building.
So this is the rear, if you will, closer to where the pavilions and the restaurant is located, if someone were looking there. And it looks kind of purple here, but we did decide on the color blue, which is more in line with the color schemes of the military troops. And we also have, I want you to notice that these are 8 feet in height on these stones. And so you have 10 of them, 4 facing inward to each other, and 1 at the beginning of the memorial, and here this one at the end. That is depicted here. We would basically place additional benches. The benches that are there are really worn, and we don't want them to remain there. So we're willing to absorb the cost to basically replace those benches. We are also working with Eddie Dixon, who is a well-known sculptor and internationally known, who just finished building the statue of the Buffalo Soldier in D.C. And so he lives in Lubbock, so he's a Texas guy. And he is going to be on our committee to help us come up with a more interesting artistic appeal, and he will be contributing whatever it is that he feels that he can contribute, so that we will also be able to raise additional funds because of having name recognition for Mr. Dixon. And then we would include flowers that and native to this area that you see there. And as you see, these are insets that are there on these monuments, and the drawing is depicting these 10 monuments as soldiers guiding and guarding the pathway there. So basically what we're creating in this space, the pathway, the walkway, that's pretty much already there. There are several bricks that need to be replaced, which we will absorb in our cost, and we'll probably use that as a donor funding source, so that in many places, people will buy bricks and so forth to be a part of a project. And we will also be looking at using an inset perhaps on the back of the front and the end to basically show who those donors are at a larger level, so that we can raise the money that we need to. So as you see, it's directly across from the parade grounds at Fort Concho. We see that this would be a great opportunity for travel and tourism in this area as well. We know that we've gotten the designation again of the best city in the West again, and so we want to include the Buffalo Soldiers in this experience. because it is important to our history. Very early on, with the beginning of the city of San Angelo, then we had the colored troops to also be a part of Fort Concho. And so we want to make sure that the public knows, be a part of that. We believe that it will also open an opportunity for some small organizations who want to have day and 2-day meetings and things of that nature to actually want to come to San Angelo for that purpose as well, because right now we don't have a lot of small minority organizations that come even for day meetings. And so we feel that if there's something here to draw them in, then they would be more interested in coming to support our city.
Will one of those pillars have the history of the Buffalo soldiers?
Yes, it will probably be at the beginning, and we haven't determined that. We are working with a small committee, and also Mr. Bluthart is allowing us to work with his staff to make sure that our history is accurate when we're putting it on there. So we'll look at a little bit about the national and then more on a local basis and a statewide basis. We will also be using technology after we put so much information and graphics on these soldiers. Then there will be a barcode that will also be included that we are hoping we can get support from Fort Concho to maintain. This means that we don't have to try to tell everything, even in these 10 statues, but we can put enough information, and then it will take you, by scanning the barcode, it will take you to additional information that we hope Fort Concho staff can help us maintain. As information is updated, corrected, and found out, new information, we can put those codes to update additional information. So we want more graphics on this, Madam Mayor, rather than just a lot of writing. And those benches will allow people to come in between to maybe sit, read a book, that type thing. And so we're hoping to make it as alive as possible without putting so much wording on these soldiers.
Because you brought up the True West designation, I'd like to read this letter, please. It is from Ted Cruz, the United States Senator, Washington, D.C. Dear Mayor Gunter, it is a pleasure to join the people of Texas in congratulating the city of San Angelo on topping the list of top 10 true Western towns of 2022. This recognition by True West magazine is a testament to San Angelo's commitment to bringing history to life through vibrant and engaging programs, museums, historical restoration, and an arts community that encourages every visitor to see Texas, the West, and our nation's history through the eyes of those who lived it. This extraordinary recognition is well deserved. Part of the Texas spirit is the belief that each of us has a duty to give back to others. The people of San Angelo do this every day as they engage with myriad groups and people to help them understand and treasure the Western way of life. Through your partnerships with community, leaders, artists and artisans, businesses and travel professionals, the city of San Angelo helps visitors discover for themselves the people, music, food, skills, struggles, and triumphs that embody the American West. This unwavering commitment to the history and lifestyle of the West is invaluable to our great state. For preserving what was done in the past and building a solid future on it, Texans, thank you. As you continue to share what makes San Angelo unique in Texas and the West, I hope you will let me know if I may ever be of any service to this important work. May God bless each of you, and may God continue to bless Texas. And so I think your story fits very well.
We'll invite the
this.
senator when we get ready to
Yes.
to do all of this, to have him to come and support it. Thank you very much for reading that, Mayor.
Yes.
So,
1 second.
go ahead.
Go ahead,
Real
Harry.
quick, a real quick comment on this, and I certainly appreciate Shirley taking the lead on this and asking questions and engaging the city staff and this city councilman. But I think this could be an entryway to the city from the fort, and I don't know any more natural way than right down the Paseo and then back down across the river. So from my perspective, I support this wholeheartedly, and I think it is something that we can build on and move forward to. So let's get it done.
Thank you, Councilman.
Do I have other questions or comments from any council member regarding this item?
I just wanna
Lucy?
make a comment. I think it's beautiful. It looks gorgeous. And I just want to thank you for all your hard work that you do for this community.
It looks like it rained that day.
That's
pretty great.
I wanted to look.
So that's
Whoever picked that
hopeful.
did good.
That's hopeful because we definitely need the rain. We do have a little short video we want to share with you as well before I take my seat so that you can see, just kind of imagine again what this memorial would bring to the city and to that area of the city. So if you can imagine yourself going through this process. It's very short, so don't blink. Beautiful to see. You see the benches, but we've talked about basically turning them inward as opposed to out that way. So that is kind of the walkway or the pathway.
Let's make sure we have some trash cans out there as well, because in
Oh, yes, we have that. We're going to make sure we have trash cans and new benches and replace those broken bricks if we can get this approved. And, you know, we want to make sure that that front lot there is also kind of like the beginning of the memorial overall with some green space that is not much needed there. On that corner, we'll have some additional benches and maybe some shrubbery or something there, but it would be the beginning. And it would allow people to come if they get tired of being over at the fort, which I can't imagine that they would not want to be at the fort, but they can just walk across the street there, take a seat, read a book, drink a coffee or a Coke or whatever. And we just think that this will just be a natural opportunity for us to finish some of the other work that we're working on at Fort Concho as well.
Great. Do I have any other questions or comments for Shirley? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Then do I have a motion to create a resolution authorizing the use of city property at El Paseo de Santa Angela Park?
So moved.
So moved by Karen, seconded by Lucy. All public comment, please. Diane?
Mayor, City Council, I'm Diane Bays, Vice President, excuse me, of the San Angelo Destination Marketing Organization, and we are the organization that puts the application in process for the True West designation, and we've gotten it 4 years in a row, 4 tries, number 1 and number 2. So this is just another piece of that puzzle to seek the number 1 designation for next year. And so we have hosted the Texas chapter of the NAACP annual conference and other events with the NAACP. And this gives us another option to promote through our efforts with our sales team, getting even more events like this in the future. So we are fully supportive of this opportunity to enhance our history and talk more about the importance of the Buffalo Soldiers and what they did for our community in our founding. So just wanted to make sure to state that because it's very important to us as well.
Include the letter from Senator Cruz in that application next year. Thank you. With that, let's take a vote. All in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, that motion is 7-0. We will now move on to item B, consider awarding the task order under OP-01-22, architectural design of KFW Architects AIA in the amount of $135,000 for Stage 1 plan design in relation to the Standard Times building reuse project utilizing $238,325 from the general fund balance and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents. Shane, you're on.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, it's for the Standard Times building. We, of course, the City Council purchased the building this last year, and so as we're moving forward with it to redesign its purpose, we went out for an RFQ for architectural and engineering services for the building to look at it. And of course, we had a committee meet go through all the submissions and went through, and they interviewed candidates for the architectural services and went through. And so the committee selected the local firm of KFW to negotiate with. And so they've been working through the negotiation of a Phase 1 plan, a master plan of sorts, basically, to kind of look at the building, determine what the all of the divisions and the departments that are going to be housed there, to take a look at the actual scope of the building and the needs of each individual department and division that will be housed in that building, and to get an overall look of it. So with this, develop project department for programming for the space allocation. Again, each individual department has its own needs, whether that's utilities, operations, engineering, communications department with Brian Groves and his studio and those type things that need their own individual spaces. And so we'll be working closely with KFW, city staff will, to define those spaces within the available space within the existing building. So and of course, when we start talking about the mechanical footprints as we're moving on, the building, of course, being quite dated, there's a lot of the mechanical that's going to need to be replaced and repaired as we work through the system and make sure it all lays out with the new layout of the building. And two, as we move, the footprint of the building is large enough that the existing public works and the communications and fire marshal's office that will be moving into this building, we don't need all of the space that's allotted in there, so we'll have room for growth in the future. And so we want to make sure that as we design the building out for our needs, initial needs now, that we're looking to the future as well, and we make sure that all of the future mechanical ductwork and all of those things are in place for us to expand. And so get all of that in there, and then, of course, be developing cost estimates for as we move into the next phase, when we start looking at phase 2, when we start looking at the construction documents and the bidding documents with the CMAR, and going through the CMAR process, the construction manager at risk process. So we expect this to be completed in about 8 to 12 weeks with this initial phase, and then at that point in time, we will again come back to City Council for phase 2, and of course kind of get y'all's feedback on what we've done at this point. So as we look at the fee for this will be with KFW, we're looking at a fixed fee for the phase 1 option. And this will be $130,000 for the actual design. We have two.
That's 135.
Well, yeah, it'll be 135 total. I was going to say the two renderings will be $5,000 for a total of $135,000. And then, got a little ahead of myself there. So, but $135,000 for the actual KFW services themselves for phase 1. Phase 2, of course, we will have additional costs when we bring that to you in the future. But again, we will be working with KFW as well as a construction manager at risk to make sure that as we're going through those construction documents in the building phase of that we are really narrowing that monetary need down to the lowest amount possible to get this building in a usable condition for the Public Works Department. So,
questions for Shane?
Got
Tom?
So are you asking for $238,000 or $135,000?
Well, the next one, this is kind of a two-part. This is a two-part. What we're asking for is in two parts. One is to award the contractor task order to KFW Architects for $135,000, but to also do a budget amendment for $238,325 to not only include the contract with KFW, but also to when we purchase the building, we need to also add for the property taxes that were left on that building when we purchased the building, so to cover the property taxes, and then also the earnest money that we use for the building as well too. And then of course utilities, we've left all the utilities on in the building as well, and of course without a designated budget and designated fund, we're going to use the $15,000 to cover the utilities through the remainder of the year, electrical, gas, all of those type things to leave the building in functional condition, and that will go into building maintenance fund to cover those costs until we get the building in move-in condition.
Any other questions for Shane? All right, then do I have a motion to approve the task order for the items that Shane just discussed? Second by Harry. I don't know if I had him. I didn't have a first.
Motion.
Okay, Larry's going to make a first. Harry's going to make a second. We're going to open the floor for public comment. Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. We'll move into item C, first reading and public hearing of an ordinance approving standards of care for recreation summer camp held at recreation centers for ages 5 through 13. Brent, you're on.
Mayor, good morning, Mayor Daniels, council members. I'm Brent Casey, Recreation Manager. Every year, Recreation puts on 2 summer camps if the need for both is there. One at Carl Ray Johnson Rec Center, one at Southside Recreation Center. So Texas Health and Human Services requires us to get a waiver because we are not a licensed daycare facility. So every year we come to you guys and we request approval for the standards of care ordinance.
Explain the difference between why we have to justify not being a daycare versus being a summer camp.
There's many different things that go into being a licensed daycare facility. We don't want to get into that. We are a summer day camp. We do it just over about 12 days over what they require us to do. If we made it 12 days shorter, we wouldn't even be required to get the waiver, but we don't want to get into all of their inspections and everything like that because it's not a year-round program. So we just want to do the summer camp, provide the kids safe, active things to do during the summer, and that'll start on May 31st and in the first week of August before they go back to school. So the ordinance is required annually, so I have to come and get you to approve it. So.
Is there a fee for the summer camp?
Yes, ma'am. There is a fee. It's $65 per child per week, and a one-time registration fee of $45. And then if they're going to be on vacation for the week or whatever, then they can hold their spot in the summer camp for a fee of $20 per week.
Okay. Lucy?
Why the $45 registration fee?
It's in there, so our staff have to do all the paperwork and everything like that when they come in to register. It's a long packet, so we have to provide Texas Health and Human Services that packet, and when they do all that stuff, it's just a processing fee that we charge. It's been there since I've started, ma'am.
Okay. So we've actually kept on charging the registration fee for a long time?
Yes, ma'am. This will be my 8th year to oversee the camp, and we've done it every year since then. So.
Sometimes money on the table ensures that they show up.
Correct.
Okay, with that, do I have a motion for approval of item C of the ordinance approving standards of care for recreation summer camp?
So moved.
So moved by Harry.
Second.
Seconded by Tom. Public comment, please. Hold, okay.
I just have one more question, Casey. How many children do y'all usually get?
We can take up to 60 at each location. That varies throughout the year. I mean, we started out with 60 the first day, and then by the end of the summer last year, we were down to 20. There was still this thing called COVID going on, so it fluctuated a lot, people coming and going with different things. We're hoping to get that built back up. 2019, we were full at both locations, so we're working on getting back up to that point now. Yes, ma'am.
Public comment? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. We'll move into item D, update on HUD, Home American Rescue Plan, ARP funding earmarked for programs and projects to reduce homelessness and increase housing stability.
Good morning. HUD provided $1.1 million of the American Rescue Plan funds earmarked to assist homeless or those who are at risk of being homeless, by providing housing, rental assistance, supportive services, and non-congregate shelters to reduce homelessness and increase housing stability. The grant will be administered through the city's federal grant process, which includes holding public meetings, developing the annual action plan, and having council review and approve the plan before it gets submitted to HUD. The Local Homeless Coalition, which the city is a member of, has established a goal of eliminating veteran homelessness. The concept was approved by the Texas Homeless Network, which is the leading agency for homelessness for the continuum of care balance of state, which we're part of. And HUD requires that THN we get consultation from their staff before we submit any plans. Now, the previous 5 homeless counts identified an average of 6 homeless veterans in the area, with 12 being the high in 2019 and 4 being the lowest in 2018. Staff is recommending projects and programs to support the goal of ending veteran homelessness, which includes the construction or renovation of transitional or permanent shelters for up to 8 homeless veterans, and case management to help veterans navigate through the maze of social service programs. Staff also is looking to institute homeless prevention programs such as tenant-based rental assistance. That's to keep families from becoming homeless in the first place, keeping them in their homes. My staff would be the agency managing that program. So the first step is to issue an RFP to see if there are any nonprofits interested in participating. The RFP will ask for proposals for the construction and management of facilities to house up to the 8 homeless veterans I mentioned and provide case management, which is critical. It will require a proposed site plan with locations, size of the facility, basic layout, and proposed layout of the proposed facility. Staff will then host public meetings to get public input and then present recommendations to council for approval before submitting plans to HUD. And we'd like to get your direction and your input before we move forward with any of this.
I have one comment, and that is that obviously we want to take care of the military homelessness. Maybe there's 12, maybe there's 4, maybe we need 8. But what I want to make sure we don't do is do the easy thing and all of a sudden say that downtown San Angelo is the place this ought to be. We need to have consideration for multiple locations. I'm not supportive of putting down a homeless shelter for whoever in our historic downtown as we're trying to redevelop our downtown area. So we need to make sure that we have options, that we've looked at those options, and don't just assume that downtown's the perfect location.
It's going to depend on the proposals we get back, obviously. We may not have anybody's interested. At that point, if we have no proposals, we will recommend that we go with the tenant-based rental assistance through the city. That's the second plan B.
The other issue is certainly the operation and management of the facility. We know that the Salvation Army has not been successful in this city of managing temporary housing. I'm not sure what you call what Salvation Army did, but obviously they were not able to cover the costs and the upkeep of facilities. So it's easy to say, 1.1 million looks like a lot of money. It's not a lot of money when you're looking to build and or manage and maintain over a period of many years. So what ends up happening with many, and I've read over this past week, many cities' approach to this problem, most of them don't have a winning story. And so we need to make sure that we have really looked at other cities, what they've done, what hasn't worked, and what might be a solution for this city. But we need a success story, and there isn't one out there. The only one that in this area and I'm not sure what their success rate is Abilene, quote, did something a couple years ago to address the homeless veterans. And my question is, are you talking about homeless veterans only or the homeless population outside of the veteran population?
Well, I think the coalition is working towards solutions for the entire community, the homeless community. What I like to do with these funds is to it's like use them as seed money to help with the ending veteran homelessness process. And there is a process. Abilene went through that. One of the things you have to do is you have to have enough beds for the average, for the amount of homeless veterans you have, and that's based on the point-in-time count, which is about 6. That's the number. So we go with 2 more, 8. That makes it even it opens up a little bit more room for growth. You also have to have case management for all those individuals so they can eventually get to permanent housing, to get out of homelessness. That's the key. And then we apply to the national organization, and they look at our proposals, and then they say yes or no. You have, in fact, ended homeless veterans, veteran homelessness. That's what Abilene did. Houston did it. We'd like to do the same thing. The balance of states, which is all those counties that are not in the basically the I-35 corridor, they're all trying to do the same thing. I'm part of a committee, a state committee that's looking at that problem, and we surely want to go towards that direction. So I think it's a great opportunity now. These are one-time funds. We could use them for seed money, get maybe a small apartment complex somewhere, or maybe it doesn't have to be downtown. It can be downtown if one of the proposals comes in that way. You may not support it, but you remember that the homeless individuals do stay downtown. That is, if you look at any big city or any city, that's where they're at. Abilene happens to be lucky. They have at least two organizations that strictly focus on homelessness. San Angelo has 0. We have no organization that's dedicated to homelessness. They have 2. So that's a lot easier for them to deal with this problem. So the coalition keeps trying to work to try to get that, but we're pretty far away from that. But so this one-time funds, use it for seed money, at least attack one problem in homelessness, and that's a success, I think. Even veteran homelessness, I think it would be a feather in our cap as a city. And I think it's the right thing to do. So that's my pitch.
Harry?
We have at least 2 veterans on this council, and I know that every veterans organization that I work with, the number one priority is getting veterans off the street. So from my perspective, I support this. But I also want to make sure that we've got a way to make sure that these veterans have social services to get them along the line so they're not long-term residents in whatever housing area that we can get them in. We've got to get them so that they're able to find permanent housing. What that is, I don't know. We've got to also find the services that will allow them to be successful in life. So get them in and get them out. I want to support this. I want to get these veterans off the street, and let's find a way that we can help make them successful. Bring them back as citizens instead of being out there underutilized. So,
Lucy, and then Larry.
What's our population of homelessness?
Homeless total? It fluctuates, of course, as you know. This year's point in time. We don't have the numbers yet. We held the point in time count in January. It was a very successful count. It was extensive, much more extensive than we have in the past. We started at 6 o'clock in the morning, ended at 9 o'clock at night. 3 shifts, just really attacked it because that's one of the things we have to do. We have to truly identify the number of veterans that are homeless before you can actually take any action. So we won't get the numbers back until after April because HUD allowed cities to choose, because of COVID, to go further to extend their count towards April, and that's what a lot of them did. So you have to wait till that happens, and they'll give us numbers. They did give me the 6 for this year, so we have 6 veterans for this 2022 count. But normally, it averages from between 100 to 200. We've had as high as 238 about 5 years ago, and we've had as low as 70. So I think if I have one number, it would be 150. That's a good number, I think. But that does not include those who are homeless that are couch surfing. We have tons of those people, families and kids. They don't count. We do not count those as homeless. It's only those who are in a shelter or those who are, in fact, living on the street or somewhere that's not conducive to living like in the car or under the bridge, that kind of thing. That's what we determine as homeless, and so we figure about 150.
Larry?
Follow up with Harry's remarks. I anticipate you're going out to the local veterans organizations.
It's
for
a
support.
requirement. It's a requirement to, and I know a lot of them. I'm a veteran myself, and I know a lot of them. So we will approach them. We will hold meetings to try to get information and input from them. That's one of the requirements. We have to document that before we submit our application.
Any further questions, Tommy?
I didn't hear you say, Bob, so I don't want to put words in your mouth. If in fact someone through the RFP process submitted a proposal that just, I'll say, included veterans in their proposal, but also was having another plan for the homelessness in addition to the veterans, that would not be an automatic disqualifier through the RFP process.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, I mean, as long as you give us 8 beds for transitional or permanent housing, you'll satisfy the RFP to compete, of course. Still has to come to council. You all make the decision, not me. So you guys will be telling me whether or not you want to go that way or not. Because you could have a bigger facility that earmarks certain sections and 8 beds, if you will, for veterans, and then that makes them competitive.
Okay, thank you.
So Bob, what's the annual, the duration of somebody staying in as classified this before you can transition them to permanent housing? Is that a 6-month, 4-month?
Transitional housing is 24 months.
Okay.
That's a number that HUD uses for the most part. So if you can, sometimes some facilities will do 18 months, but 24 is a good one. That's what we use for our rapid rehousing continuum of care grant that we have 2 years ago. We use 24 months. So we can keep them there. But ultimately, though, we want to transition them to permanent housing. You got to have a plan for that. And the plan is relatively simple. You put them with, you partner with the Public Housing Authority, and they provide the long-term solution for us. But to get them there, that's the key. You got to be able to get them off the street, get them in a place where they're safe, where they can get case management, the supportive services that they need, and then hopefully transition to permanent housing.
Bob, I'm 100% with everybody here, but I'm going to echo what Brenda said. We don't want to do something that's not sustainable. We want to do something and do it right and able to bridge that gap. We've researched this, but we look at the time we put them in, and then can others come in and under that if you move 2 or 3 out into permanent housing, do you replace them with 2 or 3 more?
Yes, you would. As they transition out, you have another group coming in. That's the idea, is to get them. Now, this permanent housing, they're going to have their own place.
Right.
So for the transitional housing, you would want them to be there. You would want them to move out to get through, get out.
But that transitional housing would always be at capacity, correct?
Yes, hopefully.
Okay.
Hopefully.
That's what I need to know. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, with that, I will ask for, and the ARP funds have an end date of when?
2030.
So we have a lot of time to really spend.
Well, we have till the end of, so September 30th to submit the plan to HUD. It's got to be done this year. What we're going to do is we're going to amend last year's plan is what we're going to do. So when I come to council in June, July, I think July, I'll have the ARP, we've revised annual action plan for your approval, and I'll have this year's annual action plan for your approval, for your review and approval. So you'll see 2 of them this year.
And we need to make sure we have options.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
We don't
You
just
do have
plan-
options. You do
Just
have
because
options.
they're in downtown now does not make that the perfect location,
It may not, but it may. I
just
can't
to be
say.
clear. All right,
So-
may I have,
But
I
there's
guess
no-
this
there's
is
no-
just an update, so
Yeah,
we're not taking a
it's just an
vote on
update,
it.
just direction. I think I've got it. I think I'm good. I think I'm ready to proceed. Thank you.
Okay. Item E, first reading and public hearing of an ordinance for Z22-04 to rezone a property from the single-family residential zoning district to the neighborhood commercial zoning district, being .149 acres, located at 430 West Avenue X. John?
Thank you. John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. As you mentioned, this is on Avenue X, is the address street, but it is really on Bryant. That's kind of a better way to think of that. This is a request to rezone from single-family to commercial, neighborhood commercial. You can see there are some neighborhood uses around, but also a commercial right to the north. We've seen this, some of these vacant properties, especially these you can see when they widened Bryant. These properties you can see are all narrower than they started out because some of the land was taken. So it makes it even more difficult to develop as residential, and being right on Bryant, these properties just aren't developing residential. And so we've seen a few of these want to go from residential to commercial. This is neighborhood center in our long-range plan, which basically indicates that the plan is for it to transition to mixed use, either multifamily housing or commercial type activity. You can see here, at least on mine, the colors are a little hard to see, but there's already a commercially zoned, these properties have all been commercially zoned. Here's another one and some more. So there is, the transition. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, we apparently have a citizen in the audience that wanted to make a public comment on that last item. If we could maybe pause this presentation.
Did I not ask for public? Oh, because we didn't have a motion on the
Correct.
floor. So
Yeah.
we didn't ask for public comment. So we'll stop 1 second, John, and the person in the audience, please come forward. Good morning.
My name is Stephanie Hamby. I am the Executive Director of Galley Community Development, and I am so excited for the ARP funding that's coming down. Bob has done a great job of putting out his proposal. What I would like to see is when that RFP comes out to be a little more broad. Tommy, you mentioned that it needed to, not to be just specific to veterans, because if we build a apartment complex or anything that has to keep 8 beds just for veterans, then if you don't have a veteran that's ready to move into that facility at that point, we leave an empty bed. And we leave somebody that could have a service maybe, that utilize that bed for a while. So though we could prioritize the veterans in that facility or whatever, maybe make it a broader use of that it didn't have to prioritize it to veterans, but not specifically just for veterans. So I would like to see the RFP come out with a little broader definition so that the organizations that are working together to try to address the entire homeless and housing insecurity spectrum we could work together to utilize the funding to do more than just target a very small population, which my husband was a veteran. I have kids in the military. I very much support that. But I feel like we're just pigeonholing and we could end up with empty beds that could be used somewhere else. So I would love to be able to, open this up to work with the city and the council and everybody and make this a big community project, because I believe that the community can really come behind an emergency shelter, long-term housing for veterans and for other people that are ready to transition into that. But I think we need to give them the opportunity, because some people are not ready for permanent housing right away. They need that emergency shelter time, or just, to get to know those that are going to be working with them so they can build trust and relationships. So having a broader RFP would give us the option to bring more options to council for that money, for that funding.
Thank you so much for those comments. Well said. All right, we will go back to John James' presentation on item E.
Thank you. Yeah, and I was just saying that you can see a number of different properties that have been rezoned to commercial in this area, particularly along Bryant. And if we zoomed out from this picture, that there's more north and south of this area. So staff is recommending approval. We sent out our 22 notices to the surrounding property owners and did not receive any responses in favor or in opposition. Just a few pictures. This is the subject property right in the foreground there in that picture. And this is looking at it. Again, you can kind of tell that it's a very narrow, and so it's, regardless of what they do there, it's going to be a small scale. It's not going to be a grocery store, a gas station, or anything like that. It's going to be a fairly small scale office or small commercial.
They haven't designated what they want to use it for yet?
No, I would defer to if the applicant's here, but yeah, as you know, zoning is just applying the commercial zoning, so they could do anything. I'm not aware of specific plans that they have at this point. Again, the CN zoning is compatible with the comprehensive plan. It's compatible with the surrounding area. Again, it's a mixture of homes and small-scale commercial in that area. And we believe it is suitable for being along Bryant, heavily traveled road to convert to a commercial use. So staff does recommend approval, as did the Planning Commission unanimously. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does council have any questions on item E for John? Then may I have a motion for a move? Harry made a motion. Lucy seconded. Do we have public comment? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor of approving item E, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. We will move into item F, first reading and public hearing of ordinances on the following cases for property being .436 acres located on the west side of South Bell Street between Culberson Street and Bryan Street. 1 CP 22-01, a request for approval of an amendment to the comprehensive plan, changing the future land use from neighborhood to commercial. And 2 Z22-05, a request for approval of a rezoning from the single-family residential to the general commercial zoning district. John, you're on.
Thank you. And this is on Bryan Street, not Bryant Street. Just FYI, we would not allow a street name to be that similar today under 911 rules, but these both pre-exist. This is another rezoning from RS1. The original request is to CG. You'll note that the recommendation is for a lesser zoning district than that, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But you can see the residential in this area. In fact, most everything to that direction, the west side of Bell Street, is largely residential, and any commercial on that side of the street is smaller scale office and neighborhood commercial. While there is some heavier commercial on the other side of Bell Street, the concern of staff and the Planning Commission was that Bell Street represents a fairly strict line, that there is general and heavy commercial on the east side, but that has not crossed Bell into the neighborhood, and our recommendation was to continue that hard line and not allow the general commercial. But we are recommending an approval of an office commercial, which would allow office uses, but not the heavier uses that would be allowed in general commercial. Just a note that will allow what the property owner has requested to do with the property, which is an electrician's office. And so their initial request was for general commercial because that seemed to make sense for them. But in working with them and at the Planning Commission meeting, we came up with this solution that works for everyone, but doesn't allow that heavier zoning across the street. So you can see here the long-range plan for the area. This over here is largely commercial and industrial, but again, that's a pretty strict boundary there at Bell Street. And the only commercial you see there are office commercial or neighborhood commercial uses or zoning districts. We did send out our notifications to the surrounding property owners. We did receive 1 in support, none in opposition. Just a few pictures of the area. And this is just a sketch that the applicant provided. They want to have as I mentioned, electrical office. There is a yard here. That was some of the discussion at the Planning Commission. The office commercial zoning would not allow outdoor storage of, electrical supplies and equipment. But they mentioned at the meeting that area is really just for parking of their vehicles, which would be allowed in that zoning. Staff did recommend denial, as I mentioned, of the general commercial, but we are supportive of the office commercial, which was the zoning that was recommended by the Planning Commission. As well, the request was to a commercial designation in the future land use plan. The Planning Commission also recommended denial of that, but did approve neighborhood center, which is the more neighborhood compatible designation, but still allows office and light commercial kinds of activities. So with that, it does come to you from the Planning Commission with the recommendation for that office commercial zoning. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Harry?
Yes, John, I certainly would like to make sure that we continue to develop the west side of Bell Street, because I think with the new street there, it really would enhance some things. But that particular property is so close to residentials, I could not support general commercial. There's just no way. If they went 2 blocks south, just north of that Stripe store, there's a lot of area in that particular one where I could probably support that. But if it's anything other than RS1 or the office commercial, I can't support it.
The recommendation is to do neighborhood center
Office commercial.
and office. I mean, that's what the recommendation is.
Planning Commission, but the staff still deny it.
Well, no,
No,
staff
they
is supportive of the Planning
Okay.
Commission's recommendation. We just recommended denial of their original request, which was general commercial.
Which means, as we've read this particular agenda item, then if what I've already said is I would vote to deny this.
Their original request?
Correct, isn't that what this says?
Well,
Isn't that what the agenda item says?
it does, but because that's what they originally requested, we have to post it that way, because you could always overrule the Planning Commission and approve their original request of general commercial. So we have to post it that way. However, the recommendation that comes to you from both staff and the Planning Commission is for the neighborhood center land use and the office commercial zoning. So it does come with a positive recommendation but for that lesser category.
Okay, I can support that, and I can make the motion for neighborhood center and office commercial. I thought we were voting on the agenda item.
You are, but this is the presentation that we're voting on.
And you
You're
always,
good, Harry.
you
We
always
got it,
have the
okay?
ability.
We got it.
You always have the ability to approve whatever an applicant has requested or a lesser, more restrictive district. So for example, if they ask for multifamily, you could always do a single family. So anything less than what they've asked for is always on the table.
You motion to approve the office commercial neighborhood center.
That's correct.
I'll second that.
And that's a second by Tommy. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion passes 7-0. Item G, first reading and public hearing of an ordinance for Z22-06, a request for approval of a rezoning from the single-family residential zoning district to the low-rise multifamily residential zoning district being .328 acres located at 1740 La Follette Street.
Thank you. Again, John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. This is, you can see on La Follette, it is the frontage road for Houston Hart. And you can see there is a large neighborhood here. It is zoned single family, but this undeveloped strip along the front, we've seen some rezonings recently, and it makes sense, in our opinion, to allow a rezoning. Those lots are difficult to sell and develop for homes right on the frontage road. And so that's their request. In this case, they're not going to commercial. They're going to RM1, which is the low-density multifamily. And I believe their plans...
Meaning an apartment complex?
No, in fact, it just allows smaller scale. And so I think their plans are either for duplexes or triplexes, which are allowed in the RM1. As you can see, our long-range plan shows the whole corridor as commercial, so commercial zoning would be appropriate as well. But again, they're just wanting to do multifamily. You can see here on the zoning, however, that a large portion of that area is still zoned single-family, but that's really from the original platting of the property. And as you saw in the aerial photo, none of those properties that front right on the freeway frontage road have developed as single-family. We did send our notifications, 33, to their surrounding properties, 1 in support, and we did not receive any in opposition.
Lucy, do you have any comments?
Oh, no, I was going to approve it because I think it's a great idea for the housing.
And staff and the Planning Commission both recommend approval.
It's been empty for a long time.
Second by Tommy. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion passes 7-0. We'll move into item H, consider an appeal from a denial by the Planning Commission for conditional use to allow wholesale trade in the general commercial zoning district located at 2701 Southwest Boulevard.
Thank you. I'm going to briefly go through this. I just want to note that we've gotten just this morning some indication from the property owner that they are requesting to table this to have some more discussions with the tenant, which is Tractor Supply. And so we do have a representative here who's traveled some distance to be here, so I think we probably want to give him an opportunity to speak. But I'll just kind of give you an overview of what this is. You do have the ability to approve it today if you choose, but again, the owner of the property has requested to table it to a future meeting. But just quickly, it is generally commercially zoned. At this point, we did not receive any opposition from those within the notification area, although there was opposition at the Planning Commission. This is the Tractor Supply location, and Hobby Lobby is next door. Based on an old 1994 approval, they were granted approval to have the Tractor Supply. It's a different classification of commercial because of the types of things they sell, which needed the special permit. It also allowed them the up to 10% of the property to be outdoor storage. And so basically what the request is coming for you is to expand that request. We no longer have the special permit process, so you would actually have to revoke that at a future meeting if you approve this, but it would be replaced by conditional use that would allow expansion of the outdoor storage. Here's their original request, and what they wanted was a fenced area in the parking lot, so taking away those parking spaces to become outdoor storage. I believe what they're doing is expanding out for an outdoor garden type center where they now currently have the outdoor display of items, and so then they would move that outdoor display to the front parking lot. That was their original request. Some of the concern at the Planning Commission from the commissioners was the size of that area, so they've submitted this alternative request, which makes that front area a little bit smaller. They have also just a couple of pictures there of the property, but they've also indicated that they would provide, well, I guess we didn't have a picture of the fencing, but if you imagine the type of black screening fence like you see on tennis
I think
courts.
there was a picture there.
Did I miss it? Nope.
I thought yeah, go back.
Oh. Brian took over for me. Let's see.
Maybe I was imagining it.
Well, I thought it was there too, but anyway, that part of the concern was the aesthetics of that outdoor display right in the front parking lot, and so they proposed that black mesh screening to kind of screen the view of that outdoor storage, as well as making it smaller. I'm not going to go through all of these details, but it's kind of what I just described. Staff did recommend approval of this. But when it went to the Planning Commission, it failed on a 3-3 vote. It takes a majority to approve it, so a failure to approve is effectively a denial, but it was a 3-3 vote. The applicant did appeal this to you all, so you all can overrule the Planning Commission. Because this is a conditional use and not a rezoning, it would not require a supermajority. A simple majority would be all that would be necessary to approve it. But again, our understanding is the owner of the property has requested that this be tabled to a future meeting. But again, there is an applicant here who would like to speak.
Please come forward. Good morning.
I'm Richard Munch. I represent Onyx Creative, which is the architectural firm that does the work for Tractor Supply. This news came this morning in terms of the tabling. I didn't expect it. It took me about 10 hours to get here, so this is all news to me. I don't want to, I guess the only request I have in looking at what Mr. James provided is that, is it possible, I don't know if anybody was interested in passing this, but is it possible passing it on the condition that we do get approval from the owner? Because if we don't, it's not going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen.
So what's why are we requesting to have it tabled? Explain that.
Well, the owner did, but I think, having me here, this is like the third time I think we've had somebody, and we just like to get it to a point where you guys don't have to deal with it anymore, other than here's approval or here's not approval from the owner. This was unexpected. And My emails went off crazy this morning, so I was like, wow, what's going on? I was up to the impression I came here and it was for no purpose because they weren't going to, we were going to table it. I go, well, why did I make this trip? So.
Because you wanted to come to San Angelo and see.
I
it
enjoyed
firsthand.
driving through town.
And hopefully you stayed in a hotel room.
It's a long story, but anyway, flat tires, engine lights, switching cars, just everything. Everything was against me.
Murphy's Law happens.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I could write a book on that one day. So I don't know what to add to this other than if you have any questions in regard to the specific project. We do a lot of them. We've done, this will be the about 380 we've done in the last 2 years. 380 side lots. They're called greenhouse side lots.
Tom, I think, wanted to ask a question, make a comment.
So according to what John brought up and you're here discussing, the 10% assigned to the footprint of Tractor Supply of outside coverage is not enough for your storage, correct?
Well, my understanding is that a lot of the Tractor Supplies have their tractors and other things out front, and they want to put it into a secure location, which is this square fenced-in area which they can lock. The problem, I think, is that when we put the greenhouse and there's like a feed storage in the back, there's a bunch of multiple things that go under this roof, and they spend a lot of money on, a lot of money to put these structures up, but then they have to take the materials there and put it somewhere else, the outdoor display material, so they have to go to a different place. And usually they do have a small outdoor area, and in this case they don't. So I think that's been the issue the whole time. They need this space to take wherever they're putting the greenhouse and then moving it over here to this outdoor storage. Most of the stores that I've been to, about over 100 of these stores, and most of them have this outdoor fenced area. It has a lot to do with the fact that a lot of the parking isn't used, and in these shopping centers type of, a lot of them are standalone buildings, some of them are shopping centers. So in this case, it's a shopping center, and we typically don't have problems with the parking. It's more with storage. I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Well, so it's my understanding you're looking to exceed the 10% of your allotment for your footprint for Tractor Supply, but the owner owns the entire strip, so they're trying to appeal to get 10% of their entire.
I would say yes.
Which would go, which
right.
Kind of is.
That's usually how it goes.
Logically, it should be 10% Hobby Lobby and 10% of the Tractor Supply footprint. So my question is here, John, what percentage does he go above the 10% for Tractor Supply? If it's just 1 or 2%, and it's going to be a 10 or 12% footprint, I see no issues here to prevent.
The question is it per business or is it the parking lot as a whole? And
Exactly.
that's, because there's a lot of product as of today or yesterday outside already. So, again, are we looking at their because the parking lot's not owned by Tractor Supply or Hobby Lobby, or is the parking lot owned by a developer as a whole?
That answer, sorry.
My understanding is that the entirety of, I'm not sure if it's the whole shopping center, I believe it is, but at least Tractor Supply and Hobby Lobby and the associated parking lots are all owned under the same ownership. And Hobby Lobby and Tractor Supply are the tenants of that. And so you're correct, this would exceed the 10%. With this scaled back plan, that puts them at 8.3%, but that's of the entire Hobby Lobby and Tractor Supply combined. So my guess is those are roughly equal, so my guess is that would put them at 16%, maybe. I think they were right close to the 10% before with the previous plan. And so if you were just counting the Tractor Supply piece and their associated parking, they were pushing 20% with their original plan. This bumps it down to maybe 16, 17% if you just counted theirs. And that's part of the reason the request was to include within the conditional use not just the Tractor Supply piece, but also fold in Hobby Lobby's. So they're effectively borrowing some of Hobby Lobby's outdoor storage space since Hobby Lobby doesn't have any outdoor display.
There's plenty of parking regardless, right? Yes. Larry, it is in your district. Do you have a comment or question?
I'm not sure we can make a decision on this today since we don't know why the owner tabled it. Maybe they're rethinking.
Well, he didn't
of
table
why-
it. He's asking it to be tabled.
Asking.
But
I don't know.
Are they rethinking the plan? Or?
I have a funny feeling it's a lease negotiation. That's my guess. In other words, they want more money for what they're doing. That's all. That's what I could
Which
surmise.
is of no business of ours as a
That's
city
right.
council. That's a business-to-business thing.
I mean, this is the season for this product to be outside, and I think if we table it and move it forward, you're starting to miss the season for what this purpose is my guess. Yes, Tommy?
I'll make a motion just to move us along. If Larry doesn't want to make a motion, if he wants, anyway, I'll let everybody do what they want. Let me make a motion. I'll make a motion we go with the amended plan that we see here on the screen, as John presented. For whatever percentage, doesn't make any difference what the percentage is, but they scaled it back some. So whatever this rendering is here, I'd make a motion for approval of that.
Do I have a second?
Just to
I have a
clarify,
question before
that's
we-
a motion to overturn the planning commission's
Denial.
denial. Mhm.
And if
approve
I
the
could make a
conditional
note,
use.
as the applicant mentioned, we do have a request from the property owner to table this. I think his suggestion that you approve it with the condition that the property owner ultimately okays it, I think would be prudent. If your decision today is to approve it, it probably should be with that provision that the property owner.
Include that provision, please, Julia.
Right. Karen, you had a question?
Just a quick question. I just wondered if Hobby Lobby's been an active participant in this negotiation of that square footage for the outdoor footprint, since you included them in your calculations.
To my knowledge, they have not. I believe they are aware of it. And again, it's the property owner who owns the facility who is technically, the person requesting. In this case, it's Tractor Supply, but with the presumed permission of the property owner, but now the property owner has said, well, wait a minute.
There was no opposition when you showed?
No, and in fact, they both would have gotten, let me
Notices.
take that back. Hobby Lobby would not have gotten a notice because state law requires that we notify property owners, not tenants. And so any of the tenants in this shopping center would likely not have gotten notice.
Okay.
The only thing I would add is that Hobby Lobby probably would be very happy with the greenhouse because it'll bring more people in. We've dealt with Chick-fil-A and, all these different stores. Starbucks, once they come in, everybody's happy because it brings traffic, and then they end up going to the other stores. So it's a positive.
All right, I'm going to second Tommy's motion.
Can
And
I make a
public comment.
I'm not sure that black screening really lends to an attractiveness of the location. I could foresee advertisement as being more attractive than simply black screens up at that location.
There are other options. We did have a photo, it's not here, but I think they've done ornamental fencing and things like that. I think they're trying to hide what's behind it because it stops theft. They've had issues with some stores where tractors disappear. They cut the chains and things like
Valuable
that.
product.
Yeah, and they leave it out because taking it in and out is not that easy. So that's my experience. when
I
I'm
hope
out there.
Tractor Supply
I hear it.
considers that.
But Tractor Supply is, it's a good company, and they're a big company, getting bigger. So we can't handle it. I mean, we just get too much work, and I'm only here because somebody else couldn't be here. But I just look at this, and we keep getting more and more work, and you can't say no because once you say no, you lose the client. So we just keep hiring more people.
All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second. I've asked for public comment. Seeing none, we'll take a vote. We'll do a voice vote. Tommy?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Harry?
Aye.
Mayor? Aye. Lucy?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Larry?
Much thought, aye.
Aye, is that an aye?
Yes, ma'am.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Where's a good place for lunch?
Miss Hattie's?
Miss Hattie's.
We can answer that real quick.
Cannot leave town without.
And get the meatloaf with the marinara.
All right, item I, consider resolution directing publication of notice of intention to issue combination tax and revenue certificates of obligation to provide funds for street improvement projects and resolving other matters relating to the subject. And Tina, you're on.
Thank you, Mayor. Tina Deersey, Director of Finance. As you're aware, we have, back in 2016, started a rolling debt program for our street improvement projects. This would be the fourth of those such issues for debt. I think he's trying to get my slide here, sorry. So again, that was a plan to issue $80 million worth of debt over a 10-year period every other year, so $16 million every other year. And this is our fourth issue. Our Director of Public Works, Shane, has indicated that they're ready for this money to be funded so that they can continue on with that program. Looks like we're having trouble with this slide, sorry. So I'll just use my own.
We've got it in backup
Presentation.
documents, I think, so just go ahead and read it.
Okay. So, again, it's $16 million for street improvements. They'll be amortized over a 20-year period. City Council will consider a parameters ordinance in the meeting on June 7th. There we go. And what that does is set up parameters that are set up by our bond council, and City Council will be told what those parameters are, and that way we can go and talk with our rating agencies and talk with negotiate with the bidders and things like that. And then we are expecting a closing date of July 7th, so that would be when the money would be funded and ready for Shane to use. And then just want to point out, it's very important to point out that this will not increase the INS tax rate, which is our debt service tax rate, which is the 0.0936 cents
So that's
per
a
$100.
solid committed rate.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I also have Vince Vial. He's the Managing Director for Specialized Public Finance here in the audience, if you have any questions for him on any of how this debt issue will work.
Well, the big issue for me is just ensuring that tax rate stays the same, because it's been very low, which is very beneficial to us. And with what's going on in the banking industry right now, we just need to keep these interest rates low.
Yes, ma'am.
Questions or comments from council members?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
It's probably not going to surprise anyone. I understand the need and recognize that. I would like to ask, before proceeding with my comments, if this is a new institution of $16 million every 2 years for a decade, correct?
It's for a total amount of $80 million, which was
Right.
the originally committed dollar amount.
So we're currently pretty parallel with our benchmark cities of Midland and Abilene. They have a similar debt in that same category, and this would add effectively $80 million more. I'm not sure that's a category that I want to be first in.
This is
as a city.
actually only adding $16 million more. The plan was for $80 million over a period of 10 years. We've already issued 3 times 16.
So this is the last.
fourth, and then there will be one more in 2024 unless council decides to further the program and if we have the debt capacity available.
Understood. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes,
That makes
ma'am.
a big difference to me, because I really would like to see us spend within our means as much as possible, sharpen our pencils, find a way to pay our bills as we go, so that we continue to be prosperous and efficient as much as
ma'am.
possible.
Yes, ma'am, and that's why I point out that this won't increase the tax rate. We have that amount of the tax rate set aside just for things like this and for this specific program.
Thank you.
Yes,
For
ma'am.
explaining to the newcomer.
Absolutely.
Further questions for Tina?
Move approval, Mayor.
A motion for approval by Tommy, a second by Harry. Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. We move into our closed session, executive session under the provision of Government Code Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, open meetings, subchapter D, exceptions to requirement that meetings be open under the following sections. Section A, 551.071, consultation with attorney regarding Daly and Wells contract. We will adjourn and be back when we're finished with the closed session. We are calling this meeting back to order at 12:02 p.m. on the 5th of April. There are no announcements from our executive session, but we will now move into.
Unlock your iPad first.
Get in control, girl.
I'm trying.
Consider approving various board nominations, Civic Events Advisory Board, Alexander Cunningham, SMD 2, to a first term ending December 2023. Construction Board of Adjustments and Appeals, Chris Kinsey, SMD 1, business owner, to a first term ending February 2024. And Economic Development Corporation, Clifton Jones, SMD 1, to a first term ending February 2024. May I have a motion to approve the board nominations as presented?
Motion to
approve. Seconded by Harry, motion by Karen. And any public comment? With no public comment, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Those board nominations have been approved. Discussion on upcoming meeting dates. Next meeting is Monday, April the 18th, 2022. First July meeting, currently the day after Independence Day, 7/5. I recommend we move that to 7/7, that Thursday. July Enterprise Fund Workshop proposed date 7/26. The August General Fund Workshop proposed date 8/9. September meeting's currently the day after Labor Day, 9/6. I would suggest we move that to 9/8. And then the 9/20 budget adoption, I think Tommy Hebert has said he won't be there.
If pleasure of the council, I'd like that to be on the 22nd.
Okay. If you make notes of those dates. I don't think we have to make a motion for those date changes, do we? Then, all right, so
No,
then
direction's fine. Does the council have any comments? You look like you might.
I was just asking, what was it for September, Mayor?
it would be 9/8,
9/8, okay.
Thursday.
And then 9/22.
And then 9/22.
And 9/22.
9/22.
All right, with that, announcements and consideration of future agenda items, are there any? With none, a motion for adjournment, please.
So move.
Moved by Tommy, seconded by Lucy. All in favor, pack
Aye.
your bags and go home.
Aye.